The reason why I'm telling you this is because I want you to understand the truth behind passive income, because a lot of people make passive income seem like all fairy tales and rainbows. That is so easy. All you gotta do is go buy a property, you go do this, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be raining cash because you have done what this has told you to do. You've taken these 5 steps, and all of a sudden every Monday you got $1,000 hidden in your bank account. That's why a better word for this type of income rather than just passive income is cash flow. Because what cash flow is, it's income coming into your property. Cash is flowing into your account. Now, it's going to still require work. After you find your property, you got to make sure that your property is still in a good area. If you see this area start depreciating, you see a lot of bad things happening in this area, you might have to sell this property, you might want to move out, you might want to make renovations, and yeah, you can have a management company help you with that. But the more involved you are, the more kind of upside that you will have in your property, because now you're making decisions, you're doing the research, and you're understanding, okay, yeah, here's what I need to do with my investments. You don't want to be involved in the day-to-day things. You don't want to be the person that's plunging toilets. You don't want to be the person that's dealing with tenants. You want to be the investor. And the investor is the person that is managing the properties, that is managing their investments. You're not doing the day-to-day management. You're the person that's looking at the area. Where do I want my investments to be? Where do I need to move my money around? Where do I need this money to go? So this is what I need you to do. And that requires work. So me as a real estate investor, yeah, I have properties that are generating me cash flow. But just because I don't have to manage each individual property doesn't mean that it's completely passive, because I'm always looking for more deals. I'm always looking to see where our business is going. I'm always looking to see trends. Where are people moving to? These are things that I'm working on. So yeah, this is money that's coming in passively, but I'm still putting in work. And it took a lot of work for me to get to where I am today, because I had to go through a lot of hurdles. I had to go through a lot of setbacks in order to get there. I had to learn a lot of different things. So it takes a lot of work to get to the passive state, but even at the passive state, you still got to keep putting in the work to make sure that your properties are still generating good profits. This is where everybody says, oh, Jaspreet, real estate isn't really passive because real estate requires a lot of work. You got to buy properties, you got to manage them and do all of that. That's why you should get your passive income from stocks. The way stocks work is now you are investing in individual companies. And now when you invest in these companies, you get to share in their profits. One of the ways the companies share the profits is by taking some of the extra cash in their bank account and just giving it away to shareholders in the form of dividends. So if you own a company, every 3 months they might send you some money just because you invested in that company. Now the issue here is, yes, this money is passive. If you go out and you invest in the McDonald's company, you will own a piece of the McDonald's corporation, and then every 3 months, McDonald's is gonna send you a check, a dividend, just because you invested in the company. You don't gotta flip burgers, you don't gotta be involved in any of the meetings, you just get a check because you invested in the company and you get your share of the profits. Now, while this is passive in the sense of you don't have to do any work to manage the company, it isn't passive in the sense that you gotta keep doing your research. You gotta make sure that your investment is still a good one. Because just because a company is paying a dividend today doesn't mean they're always gonna keep paying a dividend in the future. AT&T is a great example of this. AT&T was a company that everybody looked at as a massive dividend paying company. For the last number of decades, they increased the amount of money that they were paying out in dividends year after year after year. And they did this for decades. So everybody looked at AT&T as a very safe dividend play. If you want consistent cash flow, just invest your money into the AT&T stock. Well, in 2021, AT&T came out and they slashed their dividend almost in half. And so now all of a sudden, this company that was paying out massive dividends, massive passive income just for you investing in it, all of a sudden changed their strategy. And so this is where now, again, yes, it's passive in the sense that you can get cash flow without you having to physically do any work, but it's not passive in the sense that you got to make sure you keep doing your research. If you are an AT&T investor and you're investing just for dividends, this is where now you have to put in some more research and understand, is this still a good investment based off of your strategy? And if not, what is a good investment for you? So the things that you're going to be doing now is you still have to pay attention to earnings calls. You got to pay attention to what the company is doing. You got to pay attention to the management, because if you know what the management's goals are, if you know that they want to invest more aggressively in growth, they might not have extra cash to pay out in dividends, because if they're paying this money out to shareholders, they don't have that money to reinvest back into the company. So these are things that you have to pay attention to. Who is the managing company? How are they innovating? What are they creating for the future? And so now, if you are investing in stocks, yes, these dividends are completely passive because you don't got to go to work to earn them. But it's not passive in the sense that if you want to maintain this cash flow that you're getting from stocks, you got to keep doing your research. So now let's take a step back and really understand what's going on. For you to generate any sort of cash flow, I don't care what type of cash we're talking about, for you to generate any sort of cash flow, what you have to do is you have to create some sort of value. okay? And we could talk about this from an active sense or a passive sense. From an active sense, if you want to create value, you might go out and you might create a brand new amazing guacamole recipe. Once you create this guacamole recipe, you build the guacamole, you got to sell it, and now you've created value, and if people like it, now you have created cash flow from your guacamole business. This is an active way because you got to be actively involved to create the recipe, to build the guacamole, to sell the guacamole. But if you can do that, now you've just created cash flow. On the passive side of things, the way you can create value, well, now you can go out and you can buy a house. When you own a house, you have something of value because people want to live in your property. So you've just created value by buying this value. Now when people live in this property, they have a place to live, right? That's the value that you created, and now they're going to pay you for living in your property. So they're going to pay you for this value because you bought this asset, you bought this value, this house. You can do the same thing on the other side. If you don't want to create your own guacamole recipe and your own guacamole business, if you have the cash, you can go out and you can buy your own guacamole business, right? The same concept is, do you want to create it yourself or do you want to buy it? Now the difference between you going out and buying a guacamole business and you going out and buying a home is the passiveness. Because if you went out and you bought a guacamole business, you could generate good cash flow assuming that it's profitable. But the issue is, if you want to grow it, if you want to keep scaling it, and if you want to maintain it, you're going to have to put in more work, right? Because you're going to have to keep updating the recipe. You're going to want to get it in more stores. There's a lot more things involved in managing a guacamole business than there is in managing a rental property, because with a rental property, assuming that the property is in decent shape, somebody just has to live there and pay rent every single month. That's a lot simpler to manage than an entire guacamole business. And so people like the idea of owning cash flow or passive income from real estate, because the amount of work required to get this passive income, or cash flow in this case, from real estate is a lot simpler than from buying a whole guacamole business. Now you can substitute this guacamole business with anything you want. This is why people are attracted to franchises, because now you're going out and you're buying a business, right? You can buy a 7-Eleven, you can buy UPS, you can buy McDonald's if you go through all of the training. Once you go through that training, you have this asset. Now you have something that should be producing you cash flow, but it requires more work than if you just went out and you bought a rental property. These different type of assets also come with different types of returns. Like a rental property might give you a 7% return. That would be considered a good return in the real estate investing world. When it goes to buying a business, now you're going to want to see something a whole lot larger because you're going to be actively involved. Now you might be looking for a 20 or 25, maybe even a 30% return on your cash, because you're also investing your time, right? So when it comes to value, there's two different ways that you can derive this value. One is from your money and one is from your time. When we're talking more about the passive type of investments, we're focusing more here, right? We're not talking about buying businesses. We're not talking about buying franchises, because these things require a lot of time. And if we're talking about passive investments, we're talking here. Now, obviously you can get a better return on your money here, but now you also have more of your time sacrificed. Here, you have less of your time involved, but it's going to take more money. Now, the next thing you got to understand is that if you want to get a better return on your passive investments, you got to invest more money. And this is where a lot of people get these two things confused, because they're talking about investing their money for passive income, but they want 100% return a year, which is a very hard thing to do when you're talking about passive income, because again, when we talk about passive income, you're only investing your money, not your time. If you enjoyed this shorter clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to invest your money in real estate, our team put together an amazing guide on real estate investing. This guide goes over what real estate investing is, how to start using real estate to generate cash flow, and how to build wealth with real estate. This guide is completely free when you sign up for a daily newsletter. So if you want to read our guide on how to start investing your money in real estate, you can download that guide just by clicking that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.